Welcome, gentle hearts who look past the spotlight, to a new and deeply felt edition of Secrets Behind the Stars. Sometimes our role isn't to chase the latest headline, but to sit beside you and navigate the storm of human emotion that fame so often conceals. Today, we won't discuss a project or a premiere. We're opening a window into a wound. Not one the cameras can capture, but the kind that steals your breath and leaves a silence that says everything. We are talking about pain. The particular pain that only someone you trusted with your whole soul can inflict. Gökberk Yıldırım, so often the steady presence of charisma and control, has let us see what lies behind the armor. In a moment that felt both raw and brave, he spoke about what happened with Cemre Arda, and his words have reverberated through living rooms, timelines, and whispered conversations. What he shared wasn't just a tidbit for the gossip mill. It sounded like a pressure valve confession from someone who had carried too much for too long. Before we unpack the journey from romance to heartbreak and toward what comes next, take a second to join our family. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you want to help us continue treating sensitive stories with care instead of shock value, consider pressing that join button. Your support lets Secrets Behind the Stars stay gentle even when the topics aren't. Now, are you ready to hear the truth as he lived it? Let's begin. For years, Gökberk has been an enigma. Though constantly photographed, he guarded his inner life like a private garden hidden behind high walls. He knew the rule of this industry: what stays unseen cannot be torn apart. Yet roughly 5 months ago, the gates opened a little. His connection with Cemre, the radiant model and media favorite, became visible, first as hints, then as warmth, and finally as a promise. It felt like a fairy tale tailored for the modern age, two people with impossible calendars finding a quiet rhythm of their own. The chemistry looked effortless, the smiles unforced, the future, well, it looked bright. But life, capricious and unafraid of timing, had different plans. Whispers of trouble surfaced as nothing more than distant rumor. Then came the moment that changed everything. Gökberk, breaking his long-standing rule of silence, confirmed the split. He didn't stop at a careful statement. He spoke from the softest part of the heart, the part that rarely gets words. He admitted how hard betrayal can hit when you've poured your entire dream into a single person. He made it clear that this wasn't just a breakup, it was the sudden collapse of a future he was ready to build. If you've ever felt a shock so deep it almost felt physical, you'll understand the resonance of his confession. He didn't speak like a man seeking pity. He sounded like someone who had loved without holding back, only to realize the scales weren't balanced. According to him, the devastation didn't come from endings themselves, but from the way this one arrived, and from how much he had invested into what he believed came next. Friends of Secrets Behind the Stars, pause and ask yourself, have you known that particular ache? The one that turns the room cold even under hot lights? Gökberk revealed that he had been thinking about commitment in the most serious sense. He wasn't dabbling in a casual chapter. He was picturing a life. He talked about marriage not as a faraway idea, but as a plan gathering shape. It's like you can see his mind holding a ring he hadn't bought yet, rehearsing the moment in secret, counting down the days to an intimate promise. And then he went even deeper. In a moment so vulnerable that many couldn't hold back tears, he shared that he had spoken of wanting to be a father. Let that sink in. At the height of his career, with attention in abundance and offers at his feet, he dreamed of something quieter and more sacred: family. He saw Cemre as the woman who might one day hold that world with him. He gave her a key to his most guarded hope. When he spoke about it, there was a tremor in his voice as if the very word father had become both a prayer and a wound. Fans reacted with a protectiveness that felt almost familial. It had been known that he hadn't pursued many serious relationships in a long while. He had chosen work, discipline, stability, waiting for the person who made the risk of vulnerability make sense. When he thought he'd found that person, he stepped over lines he'd drawn for years. He even shared that he had defended the relationship against concerns from his own family, choosing love over their hesitations. That detail was like a dagger, to stand against those closest to you, only to be left standing alone. What changed? When did the dream cloud over? The story forming from his account is almost icy in its clarity. Their romance was forged in closeness, long hours, shared meals, little jokes born from exhaustion, the kind of intimacy that grows in quiet corners. It felt like love that thrived in real life, not just red carpets. But the first true stress test arrived with distance. According to Gökberk, everything shifted when Cemre returned to her usual orbit. He described the hurt as immediate, like promises evaporating in the air moments after a departure. Not a slow drift, not months of unraveling, more like the snap of a rope. This is the part that stunned people most. The dissonance between what he felt and what he believed she chose cut deeper than time ever could. While he was imagining nurseries and rings, it seemed she stepped into a different story entirely. That realization, loving more than you're loved back, can make the earth tilt. It shattered his trust, not just in another person, but in his own judgment. There was a finality in the way he spoke about it, a line drawn with steady hands. His stance now is resolute. In the face of what he describes as profound disloyalty, he sees no space for ambiguity. He won't rewrite the past or entertain the idea of trying again. He said, in essence, that he cannot forgive, because the love he offered was too sincere to be treated carelessly. That clarity isn't born of bitterness, it's self-preservation. It's him choosing to close the gates and keep the garden safe. Sometimes the strongest choice is to walk away without looking back. Then, with a breath heavy enough to be heard, he gave us a sentence that felt like adulthood distilled: life continues, and some things cannot be changed. It wasn't cynicism. It was acceptance. He knows pain is part of living, but he refuses to be defined by mourning. He will grieve, but he will not camp in the grief. The wave of reaction has been overwhelming. Social platforms lit up with notes of solidarity. Messages flooded in. People saying they were with him, declaring that loyalty matters, that sincerity deserves reciprocity. And yet, not every voice shouted in one direction. A handful of commentators urged caution, reminding everyone that one story can have multiple angles. Cemre, for her part, has remained quiet, and the absence of a statement has been interpreted in 1,000 ways. Some see dignity. Others see evasion. In the court of public opinion, the calmest voice rarely determines the verdict. What many agree on, however, is that there was a palpable authenticity in his demeanor. Glassy eyes, measured words, no theatrics, just the sort of honesty that makes even skeptics lean forward. When someone speaks like that, the world tends to listen. If you think this downfall marks an ending, think again. People close to the craft know that art drinks from real feeling. Whispers behind the scenes already suggest that he's reading scripts with heavier shadows and sharper edges, looking for a role that can carry the weight he's suddenly holding. Producers, ever attuned to what audiences are ready to feel, believe his performances could open in a new register, one that doesn't need to be faked because it's already there under the skin. His pace hasn't slowed. Even while tending to his heart, he's showing up to work with a discipline that surprises no one who knows him. Those searching for the perfect story are reportedly refining options: a character who has been broken, then forged, who takes the pain that tried to ruin him and turns it into heat. That's the alchemy that wins awards, not melodrama, but truth delivered without flinching. And in his personal life? The door is shut, at least for now. People in his orbit describe it simply. The chapter of love is closed until further notice. He will be cautious, selective, patient. Trust will not be handed out like a favor. Someone will have to earn it, slowly, kindly, consistently. It's the evolution from romantic idealist to grounded man. With time, perhaps softness will return. For the moment, he stands still and lets the dust settle. On the street, the mood is protective. Teenagers with posters, parents with stories, elders with proverbs. They've all said the same thing in their own words: you'll rise from this. He belongs to them in that way public figures sometimes do, not as property but as shared hope. The love he tried to build didn't survive, but the will to love again one day isn't gone, it's just sheltered from the storm. This isn't solely a tale about a breakup. It's a metamorphosis. The boy who believed becomes the man who knows. Scars take time to stop stinging, but one day they harden into proof that you dared. He is not collapsed on a battlefield, he's a soldier counting breaths, binding wounds, studying the horizon. Sometimes the harshest betrayal chisels the strongest outline of who we are. And so he moves forward. He will shoulder the ache, keep his chin lifted, and refuse to let bitterness dim his light. He'll show up on set, say his lines, and somewhere between the marks and the closing clap, he'll pour in a little more truth. We'll be there to watch what blooms from the ashes. Because something always does, when the heart that burned refuses to turn to smoke. Friends of Secrets Behind the Stars, if Gökberk could read your messages this very second, what would you tell him? Fill the comments with kindness. Tell him he isn't alone. Thank you for staying with us through this difficult reflection. Remember, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe, and if today's story touched a nerve, consider joining our membership with the join button so we can keep approaching these moments with care. We'll be back soon, hopefully with news of healing in a project that turns this season of pain into a triumph. Stay strong, Gökberk. We're with you.